This is The Backstory with
Pleased to have you
Omobola
on the show.
Stephen.
This is Omobola
It's a
Stephen.
balanced,
Welcome to The
objective,
Backstory
unbiased
with
and
Omobola
disruptive
Stephen.
conversation
The
on
Backstory with
government and
Omobola Stephen.
politics.
We like to
We
share
shine more light on
disruptive
what has not
conversation
worked
on
and what would
has
make it
not worked
work.
and what would make
And
it
now,
work.
to the
On today's
finest
show, I
personable
have
and
Cath
engaging
Lloyd,
host
who is an
extraordinaire,
advocate for
Omobola
children
Stephen.
with transgender
Tune in.
parents. Now, welcome with me on the show. And it's really a great pleasure to have her share our insights on topic regarding transgender issues. Welcome, Cath Lloyd, on the show.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Cath Lloyd. Now, I'm looking forward to a wonderful and worthwhile discussion with you on today's show. So, Cath Lloyd, now you advocate for children with transgender parents, right? So, I'd like you to tell me what really inspired you to take on this assignment.
Well, back in 1987, my dad announced to me that he couldn't be who he was any longer and couldn't live in a male body on any longer, and had made the decision to undergo gender reassignment treatment. And for myself and my family, it was an extreme shock for us because we had no clues whatsoever. There were no signals as to, this change that my dad wanted to go through. And even though I was 23 years old and classed as a grown-up, it really knocked me back. And it took me a long, long time to really come to terms with it. And along that process, I really struggled a lot with my thoughts and my feelings around this, and went through, bouts of stress and anxiety with it, and until eventually the emotional pain of struggling with this situation so much became really, really hard. And I had to really take a long, hard look at myself, my thoughts and my feelings, and really come to terms with the situation. And so through this difficult process, I learned an awful lot about myself. And I really felt that, we had very little support as family members. And I still think there is not enough support for family members, and people are forgotten along the way. And, transgender affects the whole family. It doesn't just affect the person wanting to go through gender reassignment. It does affect everybody else in the family. And there's a lot of hidden issues that aren't discussed in the social media. And some people who do, do speak out can be slated really, really badly for it. But, it's important for other family members to know that there is somebody out there for them, to be able to share ideas, discuss issues, and who understands how we want to be supportive, but we have to manage change as well. That can be quite difficult, especially when it is a real shock. And so that's why I wrote my book, When Dad Became Joan, Life with My Transgender Father, to try and explain the thoughts and the feelings that I went through with this process. And then the second part of the book is different sort of strategies, coping strategies that you can use to help yourself go through big change. And coping strategies are transferable skills. So any major change, you can follow a set of strategies to help you cope with the situation and how to move on long term. And then, unfortunately, Joan passed away last June. but near her, whilst we were going through her end of life process, I was starting to have contact with people who had found me on YouTube, who had found my book, and they were contacting me directly because they were wanting help, they were seeking help. And this wasn't just from children of transgender parents, but also parents who were going through gender reassignment, who were thinking about their children, and to have support for their children going through the process. And so this is why I have now niched myself right down to helping people, children of transgender parents, and help them to work out how to have the right communication skills and to be able to transform the new family dynamics in their life.
Right, Kate, I'd like you to talk a bit on your book. Right. What are the important takeaways that you like your audience or your readers to take away from the book?
The important takeaways for me, I feel, are to learn about yourself to start with, the good points and the bad points, the things that you haven't liked. And this is all revolved around self-honesty. And, most of the time, a lot of the time, we don't like to delve too much into the deep and dark and murky thoughts and feelings that we don't like about ourselves. But that is where you learn about yourself. And it's hard and it hurts, and you can feel very guilty for having those thoughts and those feelings. But they are all really, really important to acknowledge and accept, because life doesn't run smoothly, does it? We have difficult times, and the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about the thoughts and your feelings, the better position you are in when the next difficult situation comes along that you have to deal with. And you can tap into those new skills and those, that understanding that you have of yourself more easily, and help yourself through those difficult times.
Right, Kat. So I'd like to answer this question. For a man or a woman who woke up suddenly and decided to tell themselves, I no longer want to take this biological framework, original biological framework that I possess. I want to transition to become a man, to become a woman. Do you think there's something more that we need to know? Something wrong somewhere?
This is something I've thought an awful lot about, and this is what I struggled with so much at the beginning, because I was trying to understand it totally, because I thought, if I can understand what's going on in my dad's head, then I'm going to be able to accept it a lot more easily. And let's face it, the human body is a very, very complicated set of chemicals, nerves, and all the other biological things that come into our system. And I don't think anybody truly knows exactly why it happens. Some people say that the chemicals in your body, when you're in your mother's womb, perhaps aren't at the right balance. And and the hormones aren't quite at the right balance, and that's why they're not aligned accurately. But I think as well, people's emotional well-being, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to other people, also make this very complicated. And, you know, you hear people say, oh, well, you know, there's so many people coming through it, it's a fashion statement, which seems a very strange way of putting it. But I think that we just don't know enough about the human brain to be able to fully understand why this happens. But to me, the most important thing is accepting that we're all different. There isn't a one size fits all, and that surely we are entitled to be who we are comfortable being, whether that is, you know, changing the way we look, needing medical intervention, whether that's hormone treatment or, you know, operations, and to help us be who we truly need to be and feel comfortable with ourselves.
Right. I'd like us to talk about politics, talk about the government, and talk about transgender issues once again. Now, we can see in recent years that we've had political figures who are transgender, right? And so what discussions should we need to be having as relating to the transgender folks and when it comes to politics?
I think the conversations need to keep developing, and everybody needs to be open and honest about, you know, when I say open and honest, without, you know, hurting people's feelings, about how we as a community, as a government, can support everybody. And it's like any minority, you know, they will feel left behind. But everybody is entitled to be important, to have their rights, and to be able to live their life as easily and as comfortable as they can be today and in the future. Unfortunately, in politics, politicians voice their personal opinion, and that gets taken out of context. And the UK is working very hard to support the transgender community, even though the transgender community won't feel as if, you know, it is being looked after. But it, you know, the government is also a complicated body, isn't it? And they've got a lot of, you know, different areas to shuffle, and nothing ever moves quickly when it comes to the terms of government. But to me, it is moving in the right direction. But of course, it would be nice if it moved more quickly in the right direction. And thank goodness there are people in government who are fighting the minorities' corner and doing their best to push the politics and protocols through to help people. But I think it's also down to individual, you know, the managers of individual companies, the heads of schools, you know, important people in the different areas to really support the people coming through who need that support.
Oh, right. So now, understanding this transgender community, as you just mentioned earlier. So what challenges do trans people, what challenges do they face? And what is the role of the human rights campaign? What role do they need to take regarding this?
There is, for this transgender community, there is still a lot of negativity, and this is around people's understanding and around people's education. I was having a conversation the other day with somebody who said, I just don't get it. But I think that is because he hasn't lived in the situation, and so doesn't see the intricate side of the effects of, you know, not feeling happy in the body that you were born with. And it's like so many things. It's about being flexible with our, you know, our thought processes, and we can't always have an answer for everything. And this is where learning about yourself is so important, and being able to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand it, but I'm going to do the best that I can do to support you. And to me, you know, having that sort of honesty and being that open, at least other people know that, yeah, you're struggling with it, but also you want to be there for them as well, rather than silence, which can be very, very negative. And at least then the conversation can flow a little bit. And, you know, we're not always going to get it right. You know, I lived with my dad's change to Joan for, you know, 30 odd years, 40 years. And occasionally I'd still get it wrong. I'd still say to Joan, oh, Dad, you know, by accident.
Kate, your dad was a male before he transitioned to a female.
That's
so at what age, what was his age when he decided he was going to transition? What was his age?
So he was 50 years old.
Okay, so how long did he live before he passed on?
So my dad, Joan, so we go. Joan died at the age of 86. But my dad knew at the age of 5 that obviously he didn't know what the problem was, but he knew he was different at the age of 5. And then when he was a teenager, his baby brother was born. And that's when he really started to understand his feelings a lot better. He was wanting to sit by his mother, nurse his brother, you know, learn everything there was to learn about bringing up a child. But back in the 1940s, it wasn't really the done thing to be seen on a regular basis, walking your baby brother in the pram up and down the road. And so, you know, that's, you know, my dad had been living with this turmoil for 45 years until he finally decided, and to be totally self-honest with himself and everybody else in the family, that this was now time that he had to go through the reassignment process, because he couldn't live any longer as a man.
Oh, Kat, where was your mother at this period?
So my parents have always been together. They have stayed together. My mother knew 10 years before me and my sister knew. So my mum had to live with this on her own, which was a real struggle. And that created a lot of anxiety and stress within the family home. But of course, me and my sister didn't know why there was this stress and anxiety. We thought it was us being annoying teenagers, because let's face it, teenagers can be really annoying and hard work. And so it wasn't until my dad started to be open to us that we could start putting things into place. But my mum was always very quiet about it. She lived a very, very, well, they both did live a very, very quiet life. But, you know, she was having to protect her marriage, her children, you know, the work that she was doing. So she had a lot of responsibility to keep us together as a family. And yes, she did have thoughts about leaving, But in the end, she dug deep and she really looked at her core values and decided that she would rather work through this situation than walk away from something, a relationship that started with love and respect and trust. And that is a rare situation, that a family stays together.
Absolutely. That's truly inspiring for me, Kat. Kat, I'd like us to go back again, right? To look at transgender politicians and government officials once again. Now, a case in study is Rachel Levi, the US first transgender foster officer.
Yeah.
Right. So do you think the government is trying to impose a transgender ideology on its nation and the world in general?
Can you just repeat that again, please?
Right. I would like us to go back to transgender, right, politicians and government officials. So I want us to focus on Rachel Levi, who is the US first transgender foster officer. So the question is, do you think that the government, right, is trying to impose transgender ideology on this nation? What's your take on that?
Ideology, that's a big word, isn't it? I don't think anything is ideal, to be honest, because I think it's too complex. And it takes decades for people to truly understand and come to terms. I mean, if you talk about gay and lesbian issues, for example, there are still difficulties with, policies to do with that. And people have been able to be a lot more open about their sexuality for many, many years. And so transgender issues are fairly new. So I think it's going to take many, many more decades for the ideology to really play an important part in government issues. And even when government have their policies very clearly formed, the population are still going to have their ideological ideas around what should and shouldn't be going on with communities and with individuals, because let's face it, that's what makes us as human beings interesting people, whether we, like what some people are saying out loud. And so, yeah, I think it's going to take a long, long time to be able to implement exactly what is ideal.
Right. Thank you once again for your profound insights on today's show, Cath Lloyd. Do you have any projects in the pipeline?
I do. I am wanting to speak more about transgender issues, support the families of transgender, and I have been offered a fantastic opportunity to speak at TEDx in England, and around the title of Children of Transgender Parents Need Support Too, looking at the importance of self-honesty, authenticity. And so I'm really, really excited about this opportunity.
About that also, and wish you the best in the project, Kate.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right. Do you have any parting word you'd like to share with my audience? Any word, any takeaways?
The word for wherever you are, whatever you are doing in your life, really start to be able to learn about yourself, understand yourself, because it just means that any difficult situations you have, any fallouts you have with family members, work colleagues, schoolmates, will be made a lot easier. It's very easy when we have an argument or an upset to blame the other person and to go into victim mode. But sometimes you need to learn to just to be able to put your hand up and say, I'm sorry, and I want to make this better. What can I do to help make this better? And I know that you can't change how somebody else behaves. You can't change how somebody thinks and feels, but at least you have offered out that hand of wanting to put something right to them, and hopefully they will take that hand and you will be able to come to an understanding and move forwards with that.
Right, absolutely. Moving forward is what is very important when it comes to life. We just need to accept the reality on ground, be bold about it, and learn to move forward, because there's so many beautiful things that the universe as it is offering for us, if we are only able to open our hearts and our mind to receive them.
Absolutely.
All right. Would like to share your social media handles and your website?
Yes, so you can find me on www.cathlloyd.co.uk, and if it's specifically about my book, the website is whendadbecamejone.co.uk. You can find me on YouTube as Cath Lloyd, LinkedIn as Cath Lloyd, Facebook and Instagram either as Cath Lloyd or When Dad Became Joan. So please get in touch, have a little look, have a look at my book. It is on Amazon as well, because it isn't just about my story, the book. It's about how you can help yourself and really move forwards and be the person that you really do want to be, instead of that fighting that inner turmoil that's maybe dragging you down.
Right. Beautifully crafted, Kate. Thank you once again for your time on today's show. I really had a worthwhile conversation with you, talking about transgender issues and the reality that is staring in front of us. We need to embrace the reality in order for us to move forward. Thank you once again, Kat. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely to be with you. Thank you, and have a fabulous day.
Now, I'd like to catch up with missed episodes of the Backstory to Omobola Stephen. You can go online and search for the Backstory to Omobola Stephen on any cross-promotion platforms you bump into. Then you have a great time. Like to be a guest on the Backstory to Omobola Stephen, you can mail me at omobolastephen.outlook.com. Perhaps you can check out my website, www.omobolastephen.online, to get to know more about me and about what I've been up to. Till I come your way, I need to be God. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.